Why do we protest the Museum of Modern Art, a private institution controlled by an unpaid board of trustees operating at the pleasure of those trustees, has enough problem in bringing art to the public within the limits of its private, institutionalized nature? Protest has been termed unwise, ungracious, and misdirected. Well, is it? A museum operating under guidelines that served perfectly well for 200 years ago is a threat to art now. The museum today, such as the Modern Art, the Whitney, God forgive us, the Metropolitan, are dangerous institutions that in modern society have no justification except for the fact that they offer solace, amusement, and distraction for the very rich. That's not all they do. If it were, that would be insufficient reason to protest. Today, the museum actively supports antiquated values and distorted obsessions that are not simply hypocritical, they are oppressive, reactionary, culturally debilitating, and socially and aesthetically negative. The simple fact is that those who control the museum, whatever museum you can consider, are the super rich, and they control all legitimate communicative agencies. The trustees of the museum direct NBC and CBS, the New York Times, Associated Press, and that greatest cultural travesty of all, the Lincoln Center. They own AT&T, Ford Motors, the great multi-billion-dollar foundations, Columbia University, Minnesota Mining, United Food and AMK, besides sitting on the boards of each other's museums. The implications of these facts are enormous. Do you realize that it is these art-loving, culturally committed trustees of the Metropolitan Museum and other museums who are waging the war in Vietnam? Well, they are. They are the very same people who called in the cops at Columbia and Harvard, and they are justifying their sick, disgusting slaughter of millions of people struggling for independence and self-determination by their precious, conscious support of art. Anyone who lends themselves to this fantastically hypocritical scheme needs their heads examined. The other day in the garden of the museum, I suggested that art reserves facilities of the museum, the art research facilities of the museum, should be turned over to the National Liberation Front of South Vietnam. I've changed my mind. That's not nearly enough. I do not think it at all too much to suggest that the museum supply the bail for the $700,000 demanded by the corrupt Californian court for freedom pending trial of Huey Newton, Minister for Defense, I'd say offense for the Black Panther Party. And that is only one instance so we can begin to get back to the mainstream of reality and reapplying the metaphysical and practical demands of the human condition rather than the psychotic caprices of the super rich. Before we can formulate proposals for the future conduct of the museum, we must learn what they have been up to all these years. Then we must examine our position. We are not students disrupting the university from within, from a position of nominal authority and some responsibility. Rather, we are, I certainly hope, outsiders who have nothing to lose. We have truth and understanding and maybe even hope to gain.